What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode for Walking Manifestator. I'm your host, Alexa Benga, and in today's talk, I really want to talk to you about something that personally has been really resonating with me recently. And this is the fact that you all start somewhere, right? And what this means to me essentially is no matter where you're at in the journey, no matter if you are going to school and you are 40 years old and you, in the concept of what society has deemed as normal, implies that you should have already finished school, or perhaps the contrary. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and society has deemed this as something that is not a hard task, and that is not something that maybe for you comparing it with somebody else is actually important, is actually meaningful. Or maybe you're juggling both, right? You're going to school, you have kids, you still have to take care of the house, you have to basically go to work, and you have this need to compare your chapter one to somebody else's chapter. And this is something that, for me at least, I have been paying more attention to, because as I have been vulnerable with you guys and shared in the past, I think a lot of us get so confused with whenever you're in this like spiritual awakening or journey or healing process, people just automatically think, well, that person must have it all put together. Or we see somebody in the spiritual world, or we see somebody that published a book and we're like, man, that person has it all figured out. No matter where they're at in their journey, I promise you, we all have contrast that shows up in our life at one point or another. The big difference here is how we choose to interpret that, how we choose to learn from it, and how we choose to react to it. I think that, at least for myself, I know that a lot of the times it's easy to see somebody else's, maybe YouTube channel, or maybe their personal lifestyle, or maybe their personal mindset and what they've learned, especially that last one, the mindset one. I'm a sucker for mindset. If I see somebody else that is like teaching me stuff, or, just overall sharing knowledge with me, that to me, I'm like, that is so amazing. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, why don't I know more? So fill that in however it's applicable to you, right? Maybe you see somebody else with a nice car and you're like, why don't I have that car? You see somebody with a nice house, why don't I have that house? Whatever it is for you. This is part of like the actual habitual behaviors that we have been conditioned to essentially now make part of who we identify to be. And I just did little air quotes for those of you that are listening to the podcast and not watching. But if you think about it, everybody, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through, we all have to start somewhere. And it's one of those things where it's like, we've all heard it, and it's like telling you, hey, if you eat healthy, it's better for your health, it's better for your overall wellness. But it's like, what are you doing about it, right? I can recite you a bunch of things that have been told to me. Am I doing every single one of them? Probably not. However, if I can start implementing those things, how much better would my life be? So this is what I want to really invite you to think about in today's talk. I want to share with you 4 key components that are going to help you in understanding that your chapter 1 is your chapter 1, and you should not be comparing it to somebody else's chapter 10, because guess what? Even their chapter 10, if you think about it this way, and this is something that recently came to me, it doesn't matter, because their chapter 10 is still not going to be the same as your chapter 10 when you get to your chapter 10, right? There is just no way to compare the two. He or she had their own struggles, their own journey, their own upbringing, their own paradigm to work through, just like you have yours. And I think this is something that for me personally has really been hitting home, because I see a lot of these things that are happening in my external reality. And every time that I get maybe consumed by something that I don't know, and I'm like, gosh, like, why don't I know how to explain quantum physics to the degree of this person? I remind myself, like, relax, right? Like, this is part of your journey. This is part of what you're embarking into. And this is part of what you're surrounding yourself with. And it doesn't mean you won't be at that point at one point. And maybe even when you're at that point, you're going to look at somebody else that's going to have more knowledge that you want to go and learn from. So I have personally started to just really take it a day at a time to internalize the fact that my chapter is where I have to be at this present time. I want to share with you a conversation that I had. If you do not know who Penny Pierce is, I highly recommend you check her out. She wrote the book Frequencies, great book. And I had a call with her. And when we were on that call, she was basically sharing with me a little bit more about like my soul journey. But it was funny because I wasn't on that call to hear what she thought was my soul journey, which she does do calls like that to kind of try and share with you a little bit more about your purpose. It's very intuitive, the whole session and things of that nature. But I was more so there, I kid you not, to be in her energy. Like my goal in that conversation was to just be in her energy and absorb as much as possible. And this is why I find it funny, because as we were talking, I was asking her more questions about herself, like her upbringing and what got her to kind of pursue the path that she did. And a lot of the times we get so consumed by what can we take away from people versus what can we add to people. And when we have that mindset, it really changes the things that you're looking at, right? There's a famous quote that says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I love that conversation. It inspired me to just think differently in some of the things that I have planning that I want to do. And the big picture that she was sharing with me was like, your journey is only beginning. You have so much more information that you are going to continue to learn if you decide to continue on the quest that you are embarking on. And this is like anybody, right? If you really think about it, and if you really digest where you're at in your life, you have something in this present reality that you are going through that is part of your journey, that is part of what you need to understand at this present time. But that does not mean that is where you have to stay. That does not mean that is what is the end all be all. And that doesn't mean that you should compare somebody else's progress, somebody else's chapter 2, because at the end of the day, your chapter 2, your chapter 20, your chapter 100 will never look identical to somebody else's. And this is where, for me personally, one of the biggest things that I have been implementing for the past 5 years at this point is investing in myself. Honestly, the most I've invested in myself now has been in the past 3 years. But for the past 5 years, I really started to just read more, learn more. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out and partying or hanging out with people that really weren't adding any value to my life. And the reason I share this with you is because as I have started to really understand that me, I am the biggest investment that I can do. And when you are more concerned with how can I add more value to my knowledge so that I can add more value to other people's life, your mindset is dramatically shifted into the awareness of all the things that you can actually gain from that moment in time versus all the things that you lack in that moment in time. So for me, one of the things that have helped me personally is identifying where I'm at. Identify where you're at, okay? We know it. You might see it. You probably, let's just use something tangible. Maybe you're looking to change your job, right? But you don't really want to, and I don't know if you can hear it, but it's raining outside. So I'm not sure if you can hear the thunder, but if so, it's raining. So that's what that is. But anyways, if you identify what it is that you are currently going through, if you identify where you're at, you can move on to the next phase of this, which is identifying what you're also thankful for before you go into where you want to be. Because when we identify where we're at, we need to also use the law of gratitude to actually help us in that quest of what we're looking to obtain, and be thankful for everything that we do have, for everything that we do actually know, for everything that we have accomplished. That will actually gear you into that third principle, which is going to be focusing on the good. Meanwhile, now observing what you would like to learn. What is it that you would like to actually now say, this is something that I want to learn. This is something that if I master, or if I start to master this new, course, or I start to master this new, gym session, or whatever it might be for you. Now you are actually making an active effort to focus on everything that you do already have. Let's say you're starting to go to the gym, right? You can focus on the fact that you want to lose 20 pounds and be upset and miserable and keep eating and now just be upset about that. Or you can focus on the fact that you have the ability to actually go to the gym because of the fact that you have those two beautiful legs of yours and you can use them, right? So finding something is always going to help you in that quest for where that next stepping stone is. And by doing that, now we can move into the last and fourth pillar, which is focus on what we want to improve by already understanding that we're thankful for something and now actively doing it. You see, this is why for me personally, investing in myself has been one of the best things I have done. When I launched Walking Manifestator, the overall mindset behind it was to help other people understand themselves better by giving them tangible, results, tangible techniques, workbooks, things of that nature that were really going to help the person go in this quest of not only saying, oh, yes, I have a job and I have a family and I'm doing what society deems as normal, but actually creating my own blueprint of what I personally find fulfilling, of what I personally find is something that I am thankful for, that I personally find overall that rush, that fullness, that overall essence of what personally you are trying to do in this world, right? In this journey of yours. So investing in yourself can be, that can be a whole other podcast within itself, but where are you willing to invest in yourself? Is it that you're actually making time to go to the gym? Is it that you're actually making time to learn from a mentor? Is it that you're actually making time to read that book that people keep telling you? I don't know how many times I've recommended to one of my assistants, actually. She's my transaction coordinator. I've had her already for 2 years. And she basically, I've told her she's a sweetheart. And I'm always like, Kathy, read this book. And it's funny because I know she won't mind that I'm sharing this right now, but she's like, I'm going to get to it. And she hasn't gotten to it. And I laugh because I'm like, this is what we do, right? A lot of us, we get recommended something. I know I do that. I've done it. And people say like, oh, you should really try this out. You should really try this new technique, or you should really try doing X, Y, and Z. But then we don't do it. And it's like, okay, well, what does it serve you that you know about it, but you're not doing anything about it? So many people talk about, they understand the law of attraction. But then when you really sit down and dissect this a little bit further, you're like, okay, what does the law of attraction mean to you? They're like, oh, well, if you're a good positive vibe, then you're going to attract positive vibes. You're like, okay, I hear you, but it's a little bit deeper than that, which is actually the law of vibration. And a little bit deeper before that, it's the law of one. You are everything. And when you can start understanding that you are connected to everything, you will completely shift your mindset, because now you are really coming from a place of service versus a place of what can I take from this? And I know this is something that, again, even myself, I have to remind myself sometimes, because there's people that are, they test us, they test our patience, they test, how we see the world. But this is where practicing these things, something as subtle as, okay, maybe I don't agree entirely with what this person is saying, but let me try and really dissect, where is this person coming from, versus right away going into the defense and trying to attack the other person. Small things like this can really help you start now incorporating everything that you're doing into that next stepping stone of what you want to do. And the reason I decided to title this episode, Everyone Starts Somewhere, is because we need to start understanding that where we're at is exactly where we need to be in order for us to grow from that experience. And we also need to be okay with letting go of the things that no longer serve us. I know a lot of us, we get so consumed by wanting to make something work, whether it's those outfits that no longer, maybe work for you, or maybe it's that relationship, or maybe it's that friendship that you go to and you talk to them and they just kind of drain you, or that family member at that is somebody that does not actually push you forward. It doesn't mean that you wish them anything ill. It doesn't mean that you just completely say, well, I'm not going to ever talk to you again, but it means setting boundaries. And setting boundaries is something that is one of the safest things for yourself, is one of the healthiest things for yourself, because that is your blueprint. A lot of people, when they ask, like, how can I be happy? And if you think about it, the formula for happiness, okay, and I have this here on my notes, it's, does it meet your expectations? Okay, so for instance, if I tell you I'm used to, I don't know, let's say going to the gym. Every day I go to the gym, right? And I usually go like at 10 o'clock. If I go to the gym at 10 o'clock, and let's say for some reason I wasn't able to go to the gym at 10 o'clock, that didn't meet my expectation. Therefore, if it's already 11, 12, I'm upset at the fact that I didn't go to the gym because I let myself down because I didn't meet my expectation. Therefore, if we really study that, what is the formula to unhappiness? I mean, the opposite of that, right? Which is, it didn't meet your expectation. So if the formula to happiness is actually meeting your expectations, that means that the formula to unhappiness is it didn't meet your expectations. So then that means that you can change your perspective. And we go back to the quote that I shared with you earlier, which is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I invite you to start reminding yourself of how worthy you are, of how beautiful you are, how unique you are, and how astronomically, okay, just think about this before I let you go. You are here. I mean, there's like probabilities, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about the, anatomy of the body. I mean, literally, there's a bunch of sperm cells that have to actually get to the egg. And among all those little sperm cells, you were the one that made it. Like, you were the one that is here listening to this right now. So I just think that when you have that perspective in life, you are here for a reason. And you are part of this grand, majestic plan that is here for us to evolve and to become a better version of ourselves by remembering who we really are. With that being said, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode. Please feel free to comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your takeaways. And if there's anything in particular that you would like for us to actually talk about on one of our next episodes, feel free to let us know. We're trying to build a community here, so please leave your thoughts. And as always, I appreciate you, genuinely appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day.